Captain Elena Vasquez stared at the star charts displayed on her ship's main screen. The U.S. Defiance wasn't much to look at. Most alien ships that passed them in space probably thought it was a cargo hauler. That's because it basically was. The Treaty of Proxima made sure of that. Elena remembered the day humanity signed that treaty. She was just a child then, but everyone on Earth watched the ceremony. The alien representatives looked so impressive in their fancy robes and glowing armor. The Korthak Empire's Admiral Zarthan had spoken for all of them. His words still echoed in her mind. Humans are too violent, too unpredictable. They cannot be trusted with real weapons. That was over a century ago. Since then, humans could only build exploration ships. No weapons bigger than point defense lasers. No armor thicker than civilian freighters. No shield stronger than what protected mining vessels. They called it keeping the peace. Elena called it keeping humans weak. "Captain, we're getting a distress signal," called out Lieutenant Park from the communications station. His voice cut through Elena's thoughts. "Put it through," Elena ordered. The message crackled with static. The voice speaking was definitely Korthak, but it sounded panicked. That was strange. Korthaks never panicked. They were the toughest warriors in the galaxy. "This is Research Station Korth 7. We are under attack. Unknown hostiles. Our shields are useless. Our weapons do nothing. They're cutting through our ships like paper. Please, anyone who receives this message, stay away. These things are not like anything we've seen before." Elena felt her stomach drop. The Korthaks had the best military in the galaxy. If they were calling for help, something was very wrong. "Set course for Korth 7, Elena commanded. "Maximum speed." "Captain, that's a restricted system," Lieutenant Chen warned from the navigation station. "We're not supposed to enter Korthak military space without permission." "They just called for help," Elena replied. "I think permission is implied." The Defiance wasn't fast, but she was reliable. It took them 6 hours to reach the Korth 7 system. What they found there made Elena's blood run cold. Debris floated everywhere. Pieces of Korthak warships drifted in the void like broken toys. These weren't just any ships either. Elena recognized the hull patterns of heavy cruisers and battleships. The kind of vessels that could destroy entire fleets. "Life signs," reported Ensign Torres from the sensor station. "Very faint." Coming from the research station, Elena could see the station on the main screen. It looked like something had taken huge bites out of it. Entire sections were just gone, leaving twisted metal and exposed corridors open to space. "There," Torres said suddenly. 3 ships approaching the station. "I've never seen designs like these before." Elena studied the unknown vessels. They looked wrong somehow. The hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid. Parts of the ships would suddenly become solid, then fade to nothing, then become solid again. It was like watching ghosts trying to become real. "They're attacking," Torres announced. Elena watched in amazement as the alien ships fired some kind of weapon that passed right through the station's shields. The energy beams hit the hull directly, melting through armor like it wasn't even there. "Captain, we should leave," Chen said nervously. "We're no match for whatever those things are." Elena looked at her small crew. The Defiance had only 30 people aboard. They had 2 small laser cannons and basic shields. Against normal pirates, they might hold their own for a few minutes. Against whatever these things were, they would probably last seconds, but there were people still alive on that station. "Load the kinetic rounds," Elena ordered. "Captain," Chen looked confused. "You heard me. Load the railgun with kinetic rounds." The Defiance did have one weapon that wasn't standard. Elena had quietly installed a small railgun in the cargo bay years ago. It shot simple metal slugs at very high speed. Nothing fancy, just old-fashioned kinetic energy. The kind of weapon humans had used for centuries before they learned about energy shields and plasma cannons. "Approaching the station," reported Torres. "The unknown ships are targeting the main power core." Elena made her decision. "Fire the railgun at the lead ship." The metal slug shot across space at tremendous speed. It hit the alien vessel just as the ship was in its ghostly half-solid state. The slug passed right through without effect, but then something unexpected happened. The alien ship suddenly became fully solid, as if the impact had forced it to become real. When it did, Elena saw damage across its hull. "Direct hit," Torres said with surprise. "How did that work?" Elena smiled grimly. "Fire again." All kinetic weapons. The Defiance's small arsenal of metal slugs and explosive charges began hitting the alien ships. Each impact seemed to force them into solid form, and each time they became solid, they took damage. The aliens seemed confused. Their weapons kept passing through the Defiance's simple shields without effect. Elena realized that whatever technology they used was designed to counter energy shields and armor. But the Defiance barely had any of that. It was mostly just steel plates and basic deflectors. One of their ships is retreating, Torres reported. The other two are breaking off their attack on the station. Elena watched as the strange vessels faded away into nothing, like nightmares disappearing at dawn. But she knew they would be back. Take us to the station. Prepare for rescue operations. The research station was badly damaged, but they managed to save 17 Korthak survivors. Among them was Admiral Grixthok, one of the Empire's most decorated officers. Elena had seen his picture in news reports many times. In person, he looked smaller somehow. Defeated. Human vessel, Grixthok said as Elena welcomed the survivors aboard. His voice carried the typical Korthak arrogance, but there was something else there now. Something that might have been fear. You should not have interfered. You're welcome, Elena replied dryly. Grixthok studied her for a long moment. Your primitive weapons, he said finally. They actually damaged the attackers. How? Elena shrugged. Sometimes old-fashioned works better than fancy. What were those things? Asked one of the younger Korthak officers. Grixthok's expression grew dark. They called themselves the Devourers. They claimed to be the original owners of this galaxy. They said all other life forms are parasites that must be removed. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. How many ships do they have? Unknown. But they attacked 17 systems yesterday. All of them were completely destroyed. No survivors except for us, and only because you arrived. As the Defiance headed back toward human space, Elena thought about what she had learned. The galaxy's most powerful military force had been helpless against these Devourers. Their advanced weapons and shields were useless. But simple human technology had actually worked. She looked at the Korthak survivors who were now treating her crew with something approaching respect. For over a century, humans had been treated like children who couldn't be trusted with real weapons. Now it seemed like their primitive approach might be the key to survival. Elena made a mental note to send a detailed report to Earth as soon as they reached safe space. Something told her that humanity's days of building only exploration ships were about to end, whether the galaxy liked it or not. Dr. Marcus Chen stood in his hidden laboratory deep beneath Luna's surface, staring at blueprints that could get him executed for treason. The designs showed a ship unlike anything humanity was allowed to build. It had thick armor, powerful weapons, and shields that could protect against attacks from entire fleets. Marcus had been working on these plans for 15 years, ever since he graduated from the Naval Engineering Academy. Back then, his professors told him to forget about warships. Humans build cargo haulers and research vessels, they said. Leave the fighting to our betters. But Marcus never forgot his grandfather's stories about the old Earth navies, when humans sailed metal ships across dangerous oceans and fought battles that decided the fate of nations. Those ships had been crude compared to modern technology, but they had been built by humans who refused to accept limits. The door to his lab opened with a soft hiss. Director Sarah Kim walked in, flanked by 2 security officers. Marcus tensed, wondering if his secret had finally been discovered. But Sarah's expression wasn't hostile. It was determined. Dr. Chen, Sarah said without introduction, we need to talk. Sarah Kim ran Earth's Intelligence Division, one of the few government agencies that operated without alien oversight. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Marcus had met her once before at a conference on defensive technologies. I know about your project, Sarah said simply. The question is whether you're ready to make it real. Marcus felt his heart racing. I don't know what you mean. Sarah walked over to his workstation and picked up one of the blueprint tablets. The UES Invincible, she read from the title page. A kilometer-long heavy cruiser with adaptive armor, gravity-based weapons, and neural network targeting systems. Very impressive work for something that doesn't exist. How did you find out? Marcus asked quietly. We've been watching you for years, Sarah replied. We've also been watching about 200 other engineers, scientists, and military officers who think humanity needs better ships. Congratulations, Dr. Chen. You just got promoted to chief designer of Project Invincible. 3 days later, Marcus found himself on a transport heading for the asteroid belt. Their destination was mining station Hermes 7, supposedly abandoned after the ore deposits ran out. In reality, It had been converted into humanity's most secret shipyard. The facility was enormous. Asteroid tunnels had been expanded into vast chambers filled with construction equipment. Assembly lines stretched for kilometers through the rocky interior. Power plants hummed in the depths, providing energy for massive fabrication systems. "Welcome to humanity's second chance," said Commander Jake Torres as he gave Marcus the tour. Jake was a veteran of the Colonial Defense Forces, one of the few military units humans were allowed to maintain. He was tall and lean, with the kind of calm confidence that came from years of fighting pirates and smugglers on the frontier. "How many people know about this?" Marcus asked as they walked through a chamber where robotic systems were assembling hull plates. "About 5,000 directly involved," Jake replied. "Maybe another 10,000 who know something is happening but not what. We've been building this facility for 8 years, ever since Admiral Vasquez's first report about alien vulnerabilities." Marcus had read that report. Elena Vasquez had discovered that human weapons were effective against certain types of alien technology. The official response from the Galactic Council had been to dismiss her findings as irrelevant. The unofficial response from Earth's government had been to start building better weapons. "The real challenge," Jake continued, "isn't just building a warship. It's building one that can actually fight modern alien fleets and win." They entered the main design center, where dozens of engineers were working on different aspects of the Invincible. Marcus recognized some of them from conferences and academic papers. The best minds in human engineering, all working in secret on humanity's first true warship. "Your armor system is brilliant," said Dr. Lisa Park, the materials specialist. "Adaptive plating that learns from each impact and adjusts its molecular structure. But can we actually manufacture it?" Marcus sat down at the main design terminal and pulled up his latest calculations. "The key is using smart matter infused with quantum processors. Each armor plate becomes a computer that can reshape itself in real time." "And the power requirements?" asked Chief Engineer Roberts. "Massive," Marcus admitted. "We'll need 3 fusion reactors just for the armor system. But it should be able to absorb energy weapon hits and kinetic impacts without losing effectiveness." Jake leaned over Marcus's shoulder to study the designs. "What about weapons?" "The railgun worked against those Devourer ships, but we'll need something with more punch." Marcus switched to the weapons schematics. "Gravity cannons," he said. "Instead of firing projectiles or energy beams, they create focused gravity fields that can crush or tear apart enemy ships." "No shields can stop gravity," Dr. Park whistled softly. "That's theoretical physics made real. Can we build it?" "We have to," Marcus replied. "Because if we can't, humanity is going to remain powerless while the galaxy burns around us." Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into the work. The Invincible was taking shape, both in the design computers and in the vast assembly chambers. The ship would be unlike anything in space. Her hull had curves and angles that seemed to flow together naturally, inspired by Earth's ocean predators. Her weapons were hidden inside armor plating that could open when needed. Her engines used principles that most alien engineers considered impossible. But the most revolutionary aspect was her command system. Instead of the rigid hierarchies used by alien ships, the Invincible would be controlled by a network of human minds linked through quantum computers. Every crew member would be connected to the ship's systems, able to react and adapt faster than any conventional command structure. "It's not just a warship," Marcus explained during one of the design reviews. "It's a synthesis of human intuition and advanced technology. The ship will think and fight like a human crew, but with capabilities no human crew could achieve alone." Commander Torres nodded approvingly. "The aliens have always seen our unpredictability as a weakness. Time to show them it's our greatest strength." Reports continued to arrive from across the galaxy. The Devourers were attacking more systems, destroying entire fleets with ease. The Korthak Empire's military was being systematically dismantled. The Veil Collective's quantum weapons proved useless. Even the ancient Zephyrians were falling back, abandoning worlds they had held for millennia. But the attacks seemed to avoid human space. No one understood why, but refugee ships were starting to arrive at human colonies. Aliens who had once looked down on humanity were now begging for protection. "They're coming to us because we're the only ones the Devourers haven't beaten yet," Sarah Kim explained during one of her visits to the construction site. "But that won't last. Eventually they'll come for us too." Marcus looked up from his workstation, where he was refining the ship's defensive systems. How long do we have? Intelligence estimates 6 months before they finish with the major powers and turn their attention to the smaller species, Sarah replied. The Invincible needs to be ready by then. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. 6 months to complete humanity's most ambitious engineering project ever. 6 months to build a ship that could stand against enemies who had defeated the galaxy's greatest fleets. We'll be ready, he said, and hoped he wasn't lying. As if summoned by his thoughts, an alarm began sounding throughout the facility. Marcus looked at Jake, who was already checking his communication device. What is it? Marcus asked. Jake's expression was grim. Korthak fleet approaching the Sol system. Admiral Zarthan himself is leading it. They've discovered our project. Marcus felt his blood run cold. If the Korthak seized the Invincible before she was complete, humanity's only hope would be lost. How long until they arrive? Marcus asked. 12 hours, Jake replied. The ship isn't ready for combat, but she's ready to fly. We might have to launch her early. Marcus looked around at his team of engineers, all watching him with expectant faces. They had worked for months to build humanity's greatest achievement. Now they might have to use her before she was complete. Then we'd better make sure those 12 hours count, Marcus said. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Invincible and felt history holding its breath. The ship hummed around her with a sound unlike any vessel she had ever commanded. It wasn't the steady drone of conventional engines or the high whine of plasma drives. The Invincible seemed to breathe as if the ship itself was alive. All systems ready, Admiral, reported Commander Torres from the tactical station. His voice carried both pride and nervousness. They were about to test humanity's greatest creation against forces that had destroyed entire star fleets. Elena looked at the main display screen, which showed the approaching Korthak fleet. 15 heavy warships led by Admiral Zarthan's flagship, the Iron Fang. She recognized the ship from intelligence reports. It was 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to level a planet's surface. Admiral Zarthan is demanding our immediate surrender, called out Lieutenant Park from communications. He says humanity has violated the Treaty of Proxima and must face punishment. Elena almost smiled. The same alien who had dismissed human warnings about the Devourers now wanted to arrest them for building defenses. Tell Admiral Zarthan that we're prepared to discuss the matter, but not while his ships have weapons targeted at Earth. The response came quickly. Zarthan's voice filled the bridge, speaking in the harsh, guttural tones of his species. Captain Vasquez, you command an illegal warship. Surrender immediately or face the consequences. It's Admiral Vasquez now, Elena replied calmly. And this ship is humanity's answer to the Devourer threat. The same threat your forces couldn't handle. Human arrogance, Zarthan snarled. Your primitive ship cannot stand against the might of the Korthak Empire. Prepare to be boarded. Elena was about to respond when new contacts appeared on the sensors. Ships were emerging from what looked like empty space, materializing like ghosts becoming solid. The familiar flowing hull designs made her stomach clench with recognition. Devourers, Torres announced unnecessarily. 20 ships emerging all around the system. The Korthak fleet immediately changed formation, turning to face the new threat. Elena watched as Zarthan's ships opened fire with everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes lit up space with devastating energy. The weapons passed through the Devourer ships without effect. The Korthaks are taking heavy casualties, reported Ensign Chen from the sensor station. The Devourer weapons are cutting through their shields like paper. Elena made her decision. All stations battle ready. Target the Devourer vessels. Admiral, the Korthaks are still targeting us, Torres warned. Then we fight them both if we have to, Elena replied. But the Devourers are the real enemy here. The Invincible moved forward, and Elena felt the ship respond to her commands like an extension of her own body. The neural link system allowed her to sense the ship's condition directly. She could feel the power flowing through the gravity cannons, the adaptive armor adjusting to anticipated threats, and the AI systems analyzing enemy movements. Firing gravity cannon, Torres announced. Elena watched as space itself seemed to bend around the lead Devourer ship. The enemy vessel, caught in the process of phasing between solid and ghostly states, was suddenly crushed by invisible forces. Its hull crumpled like paper before exploding in a brilliant flash. Direct hit, Chen called out excitedly. The Devourer ship is destroyed. The other Devourer vessels immediately turned their attention to the Invincible. Energy beams that had cut through Korthak armor struck the human ship's adaptive plating. Elena felt the impacts through the neural link, but the armor held. More than that, it was learning from each hit, adjusting its molecular structure to better resist future attacks. "Return fire," Elena ordered. "All weapons." The Invincible unleashed her full arsenal. Gravity cannons twisted space around enemy ships. Kinetic railguns fired streams of metal slugs at tremendous velocity. Particle beams, enhanced with human targeting systems, found gaps in Devourer defenses that alien computers couldn't detect. 3 more Devourer ships exploded in quick succession. "Admiral," Torres said with amazement in his voice, "we're actually winning." Elena allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, but it was interrupted by an urgent report from Chen. "The Korthak flagship is in trouble. The Iron Fang is taking critical damage." On the main screen, Elena could see Zarthan's mighty warship being torn apart by Devourer weapons. Entire sections of the hull were simply vanishing, leaving the interior exposed to space. The ship was clearly doomed. Elena made another decision that would have been unthinkable an hour ago. "Take us alongside the Iron Fang. Prepare to beam aboard survivors." "Admiral, they were trying to arrest us," Torres pointed out. "And now they're dying," Elena replied. "We don't abandon people to the Devourers, no matter who they are." The Invincible moved through the battle like a predator among prey. Her adaptive armor shrugged off enemy attacks while her weapons systematically destroyed Devourer vessels. As they pulled alongside the dying Korthak flagship, Elena opened a communication channel. "Admiral Zarthan, this is Admiral Vasquez. Prepare your crew for emergency transport." There was a long pause before Zarthan responded. His voice was filled with pain and something Elena had never heard from a Korthak before: humility. "Admiral Vasquez, my ship is lost. My crew is dying. I was wrong about your people." "We can discuss that later," Elena said. "Right now, let's focus on getting you out of there." The Invincible's transport systems worked efficiently, pulling Korthak survivors from their doomed ship moments before it exploded. Elena watched the destruction with mixed feelings. The Iron Fang had been a symbol of alien superiority over humanity. Now it was debris floating in space. But there were still Devourers to deal with. "Final enemy group approaching," Torres reported. 5 ships, but they're larger than the others." Elena studied the approaching vessels. These Devourer ships were different, with hull configurations she hadn't seen before. They moved with more purpose, as if they were learning from the fate of their companions. "They're adapting to our tactics," Elena realized. "These ones know what to expect." The battle that followed was unlike anything Elena had experienced. The surviving Devourer ships used new strategies, trying to stay in their phase-shifted state longer and coordinating their attacks. But the Invincible adapted too. Her AI systems analyzed enemy movements and predicted their actions, while the human crew provided the intuition and creativity that no computer could match. "Target their formation center," Elena ordered. "Maximum gravity pulse." The Invincible's main cannon charged for several seconds, building up a massive gravitational distortion. When it fired, space itself seemed to ripple outward from the weapon. The Devourer ships, caught in their solid forms, were pulled together by the artificial gravity well. They collided with each other in a tangle of twisted metal and escaping atmosphere. When the explosions faded, no Devourer ships remained. Elena looked around her bridge at the exhausted but triumphant faces of her crew. They had done something no other force in the galaxy had managed. They had defeated a Devourer fleet with minimal losses. "Damage report," she ordered. "Armor at 87% efficiency," Torres replied. "All major systems operational. We lost some of the point defense turrets, but the main weapons are undamaged." Elena nodded, then opened a communication channel to the surviving Korthak ships. "Admiral Zarthan, this is Admiral Vasquez. What's your status?" Zarthan's voice came through clearly, though he sounded older somehow. "Admiral, I have lost 12 ships and most of my crew. The survivors are in your debt." "You don't owe us anything," Elena replied. "We're all fighting the same enemy now." There was another pause before Zarthan spoke again. "Admiral Vasquez, I must ask you something. How did you build such a ship? The Treaty of Proxima forbids humans from possessing weapons of this power." Elena looked around her bridge, at the humans and the few Korthak officers who had been rescued from the Iron Fang. They were working together now, sharing information and coordinating repairs. The old barriers between species seemed less important when facing extinction. Admiral Zarthen, Elena said finally, the Treaty of Proxima was written when the galaxy was a different place. We've learned that sometimes you have to choose between following rules and staying alive. As the Invincible turned toward Earth, Elena thought about what came next. The galaxy's most powerful military force had been humbled. The Devourers were still out there, destroying worlds and fleets, and humanity had just revealed that they possessed weapons that could fight back. The old order was ending. Whether the galaxy was ready or not, a new age was about to begin. The Grand Council chamber on Nexus Prime had never hosted a human before. Admiral Elena Vasquez walked through the massive halls, aware that every alien eye was watching her. Representatives from dozens of species filled the amphitheater-like space, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes that would have been beautiful if the circumstances weren't so desperate. Elena took her place at the speaker's platform, looking up at the tiered seating where the galaxy's most powerful leaders sat in judgment. 3 months ago, these same beings had dismissed humanity as primitive and violent. Now they were begging for help. High Counselor Threndal of the Zephyrian hegemony called the session to order. The ancient being was over 3,000 years old, his translucent form glowing with inner light. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of eons. "We are gathered to address the Devourer crisis," Threndal announced. 17 star systems have been completely destroyed. Our combined fleets have suffered 90% casualties. Only one force has successfully engaged the enemy and survived. All eyes turned to Elena. She could feel the mixture of hope, fear, and resentment in their gazes. Admiral Zarthen sat with a Korthak delegation, his scarred face showing the wounds he had suffered when his flagship was destroyed. Beside him, the representatives of the Veil Collective whispered among themselves in their complex harmonic language. "Admiral Vasquez," Threndal continued, "your ship destroyed an entire Devourer fleet. How is this possible when our most advanced weapons have proven useless?" Elena activated the holographic projector built into the platform. Images of the battle filled the air above the assembled delegates. "The Devourers have spent millions of years preparing to fight the current galactic powers," she explained. "Their technology is specifically designed to counter energy shields, plasma weapons, and quantum defenses." She changed the display to show human weapons in action. Human technology developed along different lines. We use kinetic weapons, gravity manipulation, and neural network computers. These are principles the Devourers never encountered during their exile. Zarthen leaned forward in his seat. "Are you saying that human primitiveness is an advantage?" Elena smiled slightly. "I'm saying that sometimes a different approach works better than an advanced one." High Admiral Kethmore of the Veil Collective stood up, his crystalline form chiming with agitation. "Even if human weapons are effective, one ship cannot defend the entire galaxy. We need solutions that can be implemented across our fleets." "We agree," Elena replied. "That's why we're proposing a technology sharing program. Human weapons and defense systems can be integrated into existing alien vessels. In exchange, humanity requests full Federation membership and access to technologies previously denied to us." The chamber erupted in discussion. For over a century, humans had been restricted partners in galactic civilization. The idea of making them full members with unlimited access to alien science was revolutionary. "Absolutely not," declared General Vextar of the Korthak Empire. He was Zarthen's replacement, appointed after the Admiral's disgrace. "Humans are too dangerous to be given advanced technology. They would use it to conquer their neighbors." Elena had expected this response. "General, with respect, your people called us dangerous for building exploration ships. Now you're calling us dangerous for saving your admiral's life. At what point do we stop being the threat and start being part of the solution?" Threndal raised a hand for silence. "The Zephyrian archives have been opened for this crisis," he announced. "They reveal the true nature of our enemy." The holographic display changed to show ancient records written in flowing Zephyrian script. Elena's translation device worked to convert the symbols into understandable text. "The Devourers are indeed the original inhabitants of this galaxy," Threndal explained. 65 million years ago, they ruled over countless worlds. But their expansion brought them into conflict with younger species. A great war was fought, and the Devourers were driven into dimensional exile. New images appeared showing battles between strange alien forms. Elena recognized some Devourer ship designs. but they looked more primitive than the vessels they face today. During their exile, they evolved specifically to counter the technologies that defeated them, Threndal continued. Every weapon system, every defensive measure used by current galactic powers was anticipated and prepared for. They returned not just for conquest but for revenge. Elena studied the ancient records with growing understanding. That's why human technology works against them. Our development was completely separate from the species that originally fought the Devourers. We represent an unknown factor in their calculations. Precisely, Threndal agreed. But time is running short. Our intelligence suggests the Devourers are massing for a final assault on the galactic core. If Nexus Prime falls, organized resistance will collapse. Admiral Zarthan struggled to his feet, his injuries making movement difficult. I wish to speak, he announced. General Vexitar tried to stop him. Admiral, you have been relieved of command. You have no authority here. I have the authority of truth, Zarthan replied firmly. I have fought beside humans. I have seen their ship in battle. I was wrong about them, and so are you. He turned to address the full council. The humans saved my life and the lives of my crew. They did this after I came to arrest them for building defenses against our common enemy. This is not the behavior of conquerors. This is the behavior of protectors. The Korthak delegation looked uncomfortable, but Zarthan wasn't finished. I propose that we accept the human terms completely. Full Federation membership, unlimited technology sharing, and joint command of our combined fleets. Joint command? General Vexitar sputtered. You would put humans in charge of Korthak warriors? I would put competent commanders in charge of our forces, Zarthan replied. And right now, the humans have the only ships that can fight the Devourers and win. High Admiral Kethmore's crystalline form resonated with harmonic tones that indicated deep thought. The Veil Collective is prepared to share our quantum communication technology with human forces, he announced. But we maintain that our technological superiority must be preserved. Elena nodded diplomatically. We appreciate any assistance, but understand that this isn't about superiority anymore. It's about survival. Speaker Mildara of the Centauri Union stood up. Her people were one of the smaller galactic powers, often overshadowed by the major empires. The Union supports full human integration, she declared. We've seen what happens when pride prevents cooperation. Half our worlds are already gone. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued for limited partnership. Others insisted on maintaining the old restrictions. A few suggested that humanity should simply share their weapons technology without receiving anything in return. Finally, Elena had heard enough. She stood up and activated the holographic projector again. This time it showed current intelligence reports from across the galaxy. While we've been debating, she announced, the Devourers have destroyed 4 more systems. In the time it takes to argue about whether humans deserve full membership, entire civilizations are being wiped out. The chamber fell silent as the images showed destroyed worlds and burning cities. We're offering to help you because it's the right thing to do, Elena continued. But we're not going to waste time convincing you that we deserve to exist as equals. The Devourers are coming for Nexus Prime. Our intelligence estimates they'll be here within 6 weeks. She paused to let that sink in. We can spend those 6 weeks modifying your ships and training your crews in human tactics, or we can spend them debating the fine points of interspecies politics. Your choice. Threndal called for a formal vote. The results were closer than Elena had hoped, but decisive enough to matter. The Zephyrian hegemony voted for full partnership. The Centauri Union and most of the smaller powers agreed. The Veil Collective voted for limited cooperation. The Korthak Empire split, with traditionalists supporting General Vexitar's position while progressives followed Zarthan's lead. The measure passes, Threndal announced. Humanity is granted emergency membership in the Galactic Federation, with full access to our technologies and equal participation in military planning. Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders, but she knew the real work was just beginning. Thank you, she said simply. Now let's get to work. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Admiral Zarthan approached her. He moved slowly, his injuries still healing, but his expression was determined. Admiral Vasquez, he said, I want to volunteer my services to the human fleet. I may have lost my ship, but I know Korthak tactics better than anyone. Elena studied the alien officer who had once tried to arrest her. Are you sure about this, Admiral? Working with humans won't be popular with your people. Zar then managed a bitter smile. My people called me a fool for losing to humans. Perhaps it's time to show them what this fool has learned. Elena extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Zar then grasped it with his own clawed appendage. Welcome to the fleet, Admiral, Elena said. We're going to need every experienced officer we can get. As they walked out of the council chamber together, Elena thought about how much had changed in just a few months. Humanity had gone from restricted junior partners to full members with their own fleet command. But with that advancement came Respawn Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of Nexus Prime's orbital defense station, watching the largest military buildup in galactic history. Hundreds of ships filled the space around the capital world, representing every major species in the Federation. But these weren't the same vessels that had fought the Devourers before. They had been transformed. The Korthak heavy cruiser Bloodclaw now carried human gravity cannons alongside its traditional plasma batteries. Its hull gleamed with adaptive armor that could reshape itself during battle. Most importantly, its crew included human tactical officers who brought new ways of thinking to ancient Korthak military traditions. Integration report, Elena called out to Commander Torres, who was monitoring the retrofit program from his station. Mixed results, Torres replied honestly. The Zephyrian ships are performing excellently. Their crews adapted to human technology faster than anyone expected. The joint species vessels are showing significant combat improvements, Elena nodded. The Zephyrians had surprised everyone with their enthusiasm for human innovations. Ships like the Starweaver now combined ancient Zephyrian energy manipulation with human neural networks, creating vessels that could think and react faster than any previous design. What about the others? Elena asked. Torres's expression grew more serious. The Veil Collective is struggling. Their quantum-based systems don't integrate well with human technology, and the Korthaks... He paused diplomatically. The Korthaks are too proud to admit humans might know something they don't, Admiral Zarthan said as he approached their position. His injuries had healed, but he still walked with a slight limp from his ship's destruction. Except for the crews that fought beside you. They understand what cooperation means. Elena looked at the tactical display showing the defensive fleet's positions. They had nearly 800 ships, but intelligence reports suggested the Devourers were bringing thousands. The odds weren't good, but they were better than anyone had managed before. Contact from the outer sensor grid, announced Lieutenant Park from the communications station. Long-range scanners are detecting massive distortions in hyperspace. The Devourers are coming. Elena felt her stomach tighten. They had known this moment would arrive, but knowing and experiencing were different things. How long until they arrive? 6 hours, Park replied after consulting his instruments. Elena activated the fleet-wide communication system. Her voice would reach every ship in the defensive formation, carrying her words to crews representing dozens of species. All vessels, this is Admiral Vasquez. The enemy is approaching. In 6 hours we will face the greatest threat our galaxy has ever known. But we will not face it as separate species fighting alone. We will face it together as one fleet, one people, one hope for the future, she paused. Looking around at the command center where humans worked alongside Korthaks, Zephyrians, and representatives of a dozen other species. The Devourers believe they are superior because they are ancient. They think they can destroy us, because they have spent millions of years preparing for this moment. But they made one mistake. They prepared to fight the galaxy as it was, not as it could become. Today we show them what we can achieve when we work together. The response came from across the fleet. Acknowledgements in dozens of languages, but all carrying the same message. We are ready. The wait began. Elena used the time to make final preparations. The Invincible moved to the fleet's forward position, where she would lead the first wave of attack. Around her, the combined fleet took formation in a pattern that would have been impossible with traditional command structures. Human, Zephyrian, and Korthak ships were mixed together in integrated squadrons, each combining the best aspects of their technologies. Enemy fleet emerging from hyperspace, Torres announced. Elena watched as space itself seemed to tear open, revealing the Devourer armada. There were thousands of them, just as intelligence had predicted. But these ships were larger than the ones they had fought before. Some were the size of small moons, their dark hulls pulsing with energy that seemed to devour light itself. They're broadcasting something, Park reported. It's in multiple languages, including human. Put it through, Elena ordered. The voice that filled the command center was cold and ancient, speaking words that carried the weight of eons. People of this galaxy, you have lived too long on worlds that belong to us. You have built civilizations from matter that is rightfully ours. We are the devourers, the firstborn, the true owners of all that exists. Your resistance ends now. Elena opened a response channel. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Galactic Federation Fleet. These worlds belong to the people who live on them. If you want them, you'll have to go through us. The response was a sound like laughter, but older and crueler than anything Elena had ever heard. Humans, the youngest and weakest species, dares to speak for the galaxy. We studied your kind during our preparation. You are nothing but clever animals who discovered fire. Maybe, Elena replied, but we're the clever animals who learned how to kill you. The Devourer fleet began its advance, moving in formations that seemed to flow like liquid across space. Elena had studied their tactics during the preparation period. They preferred to phase in and out of solid reality, striking from unexpected angles and retreating before defenders could respond. All ships, execute Battle Plan Alpha, Elena commanded. Show them what cooperation looks like. The Federation fleet moved as one organism. Zephyrian ships used their energy manipulation abilities to create massive sensor networks that could track Devourer vessels even in their phased state. Human ships provided targeting data through quantum communication links that operated faster than traditional systems. Korthak vessels formed the heavy assault wings, their crews eager to prove their worth in this new style of warfare. The first exchange of fire lit up space with energies that had never existed before. Devourer weapons struck Federation shields and armor, but instead of cutting through like they had in previous battles, they met resistance. The adaptive technologies developed from human innovations allowed the fleet to absorb and redirect enemy attacks. Direct hit on the enemy command ship, Torres reported with excitement. The Starweaver's combined energy cannon punched right through their defenses. Elena watched as the massive Devourer vessel staggered under the attack. Its hull, which had seemed invulnerable to conventional weapons, showed actual damage. Around it, other Devourer ships tried to phase out of danger, but the Federation fleet was ready for that tactic. Gravity nets deployed, announced the tactical officer. Enemy ships are being forced back into solid reality. The human gravity manipulation technology was proving its worth. When Devourer ships tried to phase into their ghostly state, artificial gravity fields yanked them back into normal space where conventional weapons could hurt them. But the Devourers adapted quickly. Their massive command ships began generating fields that interfered with human technology. Some Federation vessels found their gravity weapons failing, their adaptive armor reverting to normal materials. They're learning our weaknesses, Elena realized. All ships switched to secondary tactics. Don't let them predict our movements. This was where human unpredictability became an asset. Instead of following rigid battle plans, ship commanders began improvising. Korthak vessels charged directly into enemy formations, using their traditional ramming tactics enhanced with human armor. Zephyrian ships created illusions that confused Devourer targeting systems. Human vessels darted between larger ships using their smaller size and unconventional weapons to strike at unexpected targets. The battle raged for hours. Ships on both sides were destroyed, their wreckage adding to the chaos of combat. But gradually, Elena began to see a pattern emerging. The Federation fleet was learning faster than the Devourers could adapt. Each tactic the enemy developed was countered by new innovations from the diverse crew members. Admiral, the enemy flagship is moving toward Nexus Prime, Torres warned. It's heading directly for the planet. Elena saw the massive Devourer command ship breaking away from the main battle. It was larger than any vessel she had ever seen, big enough to destroy an entire world if it reached the surface. Invincible to all ships, Elena announced. Form up on my position. We're going after their flagship. The response was immediate. Ships from across the fleet converged on the Invincible's position, creating a spearhead formation aimed directly at the enemy command vessel. At the tip of the formation flew the Invincible herself, her adaptive hull gleaming with power. All weapons maximum power, Elena ordered. Let's show them what the galaxy can do when it fights as one. The combined assault was magnificent. Gravity cannons twisted space around the Devourer flagship. Energy weapons created by the fusion of human and alien technology carved through ancient armor. Kinetic weapons fired by ships representing a dozen species hammered at the enemy vessel's hull. The Devourer flagship fought back with weapons that could unmake matter itself. But the Federation fleet had learned to work together. When one ship's defenses failed, others moved to protect it. When weapon systems were damaged, neighboring vessels provided covering fire.